I like how KJP makes me feel. She gives me confidence that I could do that job. Former Biden press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre announced that she's writing a tell-all book about the Biden administration. In response, people are saying, thanks, but I just wanted a Big Mac. And when Joe Biden was asked if he's going to read the book, he replied, over my soon-to-be dead body.
Karine Jean-Pierre walked into that press briefing ready to deliver the usual talking points. Greg Gutfeld saw an opportunity for comedy gold. 1 minute, she was defending Biden's latest remarks. The next, she was the center of Gutfeld's rapid-fire punchlines. He didn't just challenge her arguments, he picked them apart with sarcasm, sharp jokes, and perfect timing. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when political commentary turns into a full-blown roast, this one easily earned 5 stars on the comedy scale.
All right, so Karine Jean-Pierre wrote a book, and her fans are already sharpening their crayons. And it's just what we need, a tell-all from the woman who spent 2 years telling everyone that Joe just had a cold and not rigor mortis. If the title hadn't already been taken, it should be called Art of the Steal.
Karine Jean-Pierre walks into the press briefing room like she's headlining a Broadway production called Deflect, Distract, and Derail. Armed with a stack of talking points and the confidence of someone hoping nobody asks follow-up questions, she tries to keep the show moving. The performance has plenty of energy, but the substance often feels missing, like a game show host trying to read clues from a card that's completely blank.
P also says she's leaving the Democratic Party. I say God bless her. Not many people have the patience to wait in a line that long. In her book, she says the White House was broken. This after 2 years along a president who wasn't housebroken. But she only realized this after she stopped getting paid to defend it. But like Jake Tapper's book, it's a new genre of Biden tell-alls that should be subtitled, I had no idea because I'm severely retarded.
At this point, watching her try to spin the facts feels like watching a cat attempt to swim. Awkward, chaotic, and full of frantic paddling before pretending everything is completely under control. Greg Gutfeld didn't even have to go all out. A couple of well-timed jokes and a few sarcastic reactions were enough to throw her completely off balance. This wasn't really a debate so much as a roast with a mercy rule. By the time she realized Gutfeld had brought a full arsenal of punchlines, all she had left was a response that only made things worse.
She realizes she was carrying water for a man whose brain was as wet as his pants. Remember, this is the same broad who stared America in the face and said this.
Comments were made in that report about that, obviously about his memory that we don't believe lives in reality. 80's the new 40, didn't you hear? He is as sharp as ever. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith.
And it's not true, right? The president wasn't wandering.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not.
He's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him.
Let's be honest. Karine Jean-Pierre has the same energy as an automated customer service system that keeps saying, your call is important to us, while somehow never connecting you to an actual person. She's the political version of hitting every red light on your morning commute just after spilling coffee all over yourself. Ask her a straightforward question, and somehow you end up on a scenic tour through a maze of talking points that never quite reaches an answer. It's less like communication and more like watching bureaucratic jazz hands in real time.
Yeah, you couldn't keep up with Joe. Sorry, Joe couldn't keep up with FDR in the 100-yard dash. And I'm talking right now.
Damn.
But she expected us to believe she couldn't keep up with the guy who had to have an electric fence put up around the White House so he wouldn't in the neighbor's yard.
And then there's Greg Gutfeld, showing up armed with little more than sarcasm and basic common sense. Two things that seem to send Karine Jean-Pierre straight into system overload. Ask her a direct question, and suddenly it's like watching an old computer struggle to process an update from 2003. When it comes to delivering actual information, the confidence is there, but the clarity often isn't. At this point, that binder seems to be doing most of the heavy lifting, while everyone else waits for a straight answer that never quite arrives.
So was Karine too dumb to notice Biden was a mess, or was she just dishonest? Pick your poison, moron or mercenary. Now there's a great name for her book. I'm going with mercenary, Because this whole book tour didn't spring from a burst of guilt. According to Politico, she was copying her publicist on emails while still press secretary. So she was planning this from the podium. She's like a pilot who puts on his parachute and oxygen mask while your plane's leaving the airport.
Credit where it's due, no one sidesteps a question quite like Karine Jean-Pierre. If avoiding direct answers were an Olympic sport, she'd be a multi-time gold medalist. Greg Gutfeld barely had to do any heavy lifting. A few well-timed smirks and sarcastic remarks, and the whole thing seemed to unravel on its own. Trying to fact-check her can feel pointless when you're still waiting for the original answer to make sense. What made it entertaining was how little effort Gutfeld appeared to need. Karine often looked just one tough question away from citing a cartoon character as an expert witness. Watching the exchanges was like hearing someone explain cryptocurrency to a houseplant. Confusing, exhausting, and somehow leaving everyone more bewildered than before. By now, you'd think there'd be a new strategy. Instead, it's the familiar routine. Dodge the question, pivot to another topic, blame the previous administration, sprinkle in a few buzzwords, and hope nobody asks a follow-up. She's become the political version of a magic 8-ball. Shake it up and see if the vague response somehow fits the question. The irony is that communication is literally the job. Yet many of her answers feel like watching a hamster sprint on a wheel at full speed. Lots of movement, plenty of energy, but never actually getting anywhere.
A crisis of faith, it was a business plan. She didn't leave the Democrat Party. She managed her exit like Pelosi dumping stocks before she signs the corporate tax hike. She was even pining for a spot on The View, which is like angling for the best seat in a garbage truck. But she didn't get the gig, probably because she refused their lunch bucket of thawed mackerel. That's what you feed the talent at SeaWorld.
Let's be real, this isn't new. Karine Jean-Pierre has been dodging tough questions since day one. If she were any more evasive, she'd be in witness protection under the name Not My Job. Her version of preparation seems simple. Glasses for effect, a stack of charts for show, and a hope that no one looks too closely at the details. Then there's the binder. That massive thing shows up like it has its own zip code, but every time it opens, it feels like reading a shampoo bottle. Vague, repetitive, and not very helpful in the moment. Greg Gutfeld didn't even need to push hard. When the setup is already that messy, sarcasm practically writes itself. We've seen it before too. The border is secure while the situation looks anything but, and the economy is strong on days when everyday prices tell a different story. At some point, it feels like reality and the messaging are just passing each other in the hallway without ever making eye contact.
Even the most reliable lefties are roasting her, but it serves him right. After all, she was their pick, a historic first. Black, lesbian, and board certified by Visiting Angels. But you know it's bad when DC operatives call it a grift. Hell, that's like Taylor Swift calling you a 6. But they say that she was ineffectual, unprepared, needed to be coddled, and couldn't manage a team. What's that sound like? DEI. What happens when you hire someone based on identity and not merit?
And then there are the excuses. Always someone else's fault. If a meteor hit DC, somehow it would end up being blamed on climate change, the Supreme Court, or Gutfeld eyebrows, probably, all at once. Watching her shift blame feels like watching a kid caught drawing on the wall insist the crayon did it on its own. Gutfeld didn't even need to push hard. He just watched it unfold, letting the word salad stack up until it started collapsing under its own weight. At that point, there's no real debate, just someone talking in circles and hoping it sounds like an answer. And somehow, she still acts like she's winning the room. Every page of that binder feels like another lesson in how to avoid a straight answer. She can turn a simple yes or no question into a full episode nobody asked for. And by the end, even the point seems lost in the noise.
Personally, I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me. What was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad, and I had never seen anything like it before.
And then there's the confidence. The kind you only get when skimming a memo somehow turns into crisis solved. Her face says she's in control, but the answers feel more like a system error than a policy response. Gutfeld didn't even need to go hard on her. The contradictions and confusion kinda did the job on their own. At one point, she tried explaining inflation with a kitchen table metaphor, like complex economics can be reduced to family dinner talk. It sounds simple, but it doesn't really explain much, and Gutfeld just sits there watching it all unfold, like someone observing a magician who keeps dropping the cards but insists the trick is still working. At this point, the strategy feels familiar. Talk long enough, hope the original question gets lost, and sometimes it almost works. Not because the answer is strong, but because everyone's trying to decode what was actually said.
The president has done more to secure the border and to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else. He really has.
There's a word for that: pathological.
Today, we reaffirm our commitment to communities, strength, equity, boxes, and windows. Next question. Greg Gutfeld didn't really bring the fire here. He brought the mirror, and what came back wasn't pretty. Every time a tough topic comes up, immigration, Ukraine, or anything that needs a clear answer, there's that same strained press room smile, followed by a response that doesn't quite land. The worst part is she seems genuinely convinced everything is fine, like the band on the Titanic, playing through the chaos, trying to keep it together while the situation gets worse around them. And Gutfeld just sits back watching it unfold, pointing out the obvious while the answers drift further into talking point territory. The binder flips, the buzzwords come out, and somehow the room keeps nodding like nothing unusual is happening.
Thinking in boxes, but as a black, French, Haitian female, she checks more boxes than a gynecologist.
On the order form!
On the order form.
Oh my God!
All those applications you gotta fill out.
That's the thing. Or
What'd you think I meant?
Ew.
Disgusting people. But now everyone says she's incompetent and lazy. You know, after they called me racist for saying that. That's not why I'm racist.
Nope.
Greg Gutfeld doesn't even need a debate stage. Just play a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre and let it speak for itself. Her crisis strategy feels like hit Control, Alt, Delete, and hope for the best. When pressure hits, it's dodge, deflect, and reframe until the original question disappears. She often speaks with confidence, but the answers drift into vague talking points that never quite land. Ask one question, and you can end up far from where you started, somewhere in a loop of buzzwords and half-finished ideas. Gutfeld doesn't really take her down. He just reacts to what's already there. The briefing does most of the work on its own. And at this point, it feels less like communication and more like performance under pressure that never resolves into clarity.